Hey, welcome families. We're excited to have you joining us this evening for our panel with college representatives from a number of our most popular schools. We're going to wait just a moment to get started as folks sign on, but once we see that number of attendees start slowing down, we'll jump right into tonight's programming. But I will let folks know as we get started that we are recording tonight's program, that you will have access to this online, including we'll have any of the Q&A questions that are answered in writing. We'll share that out with you as well. But we're so glad that those of you who are joining us live are here. And while Kathy, Sabet, and I have some questions that we will present to our panelists, we welcome audience questions, so please feel free to use that Q&A feature to jump in and let us know what's on your minds. And like I said, we'll give it another just 30 seconds, minute or so before we get started. All right, and welcome to those of you who are just hopping on. At this point, I think we will get started with our program. Welcome, I am Dan Rubin. I am the Counseling Department Chair here at South, and it is my pleasure to be hosting, along with Kathy Sabet, representatives from, as I had mentioned, 4 of our most commonly applied to schools. There's a lot of great information we'll be sharing with you this evening from the different perspectives, representing a range of different types of institutions. We're super excited for that. We have a number of questions that we know come up most frequently that Kathy and I will be posing to our presenters, but we also welcome any audience members to enter questions that you have through the Q&A feature. We have captioning set up, and this event is also being recorded and will be posted by the end of the week, I would imagine, to the College and Career Center website. And we'll also be sending families just a link to all 11th grade families, class of 2024 families, with that information. But in the interest of getting right into it, I'm going to now turn things over to Kathy Sabet, our fabulous College and Career Center counselor. We'll talk just a little bit more about this and other programming that we have lined up for the rest of the spring. And she will introduce to you our other panelists.
Great, thanks, Dan. Hi, everybody, welcome. I'm happy to have you here and happy to have all of our panelists. Our program tonight is an annual event that we have, and after, when COVID happened, we kind of had to take our information like everybody and do some stuff virtually with it. And so the college planning series was created and born. So since that time, we've been offering monthly, starting in January, monthly topics related to college planning and preparation for applications. So just to kind of recap, in January, we had our junior parent evening. And in February, we had standardized testing, a presentation about SAT and ACT, kind of covering text optional, test flexible, that sort of thing. In March, we had the disability services for students that have learning differences and the transition to college. That was done by a wonderful representative at Westfield State. And this month we have our college panel. In May, typically in May, we do a college essay boot camp, but this year that's going to be pushed to the early part of June. So we'll be doing that in June. And then I usually just kind of finish off the year and start the summer with just kind of summer planning. And all these series, all these presentations are recorded and available on the College and Career Center webpage. So if you're not familiar with how to get there, it's very easy. If you go to the main high school webpage, go to the tab counseling and then just find College and Career. And that'll shoot you over to the website there, where you'll find the recordings of all the events that we've had previously. And then you'll also find tonight's presentation there as well. So we hope it's helpful to you and useful. So, so tonight, let me start by introducing our wonderful reps. And we do appreciate your time. Some of them are local at home and some are traveling on the other part of the country in the West Coast. So we really do appreciate you all taking the time to be with us tonight and our families. So first I'm going to introduce Sue Sontgarath, and she's from Wentworth Institute of Technology. Then we have Elizabeth Bienvenue, and she is from the University of Vermont. Then we have Rachel Mason from UMass-Amherst, and then we have Claire Pettit from Northeastern University. So thank you all for being here, and we look forward to kind of hearing specifics about your institution, but also just kind of your thoughts on general topics as well. So I guess we can get started. I'll take the first question. So this is sort of in the topic of admission trends at your institution. So with the most recent admission cycle ending, what can you share about your application review and how did you determine fit with your institution? And I guess I'll start with Claire because you're right next to me.
Great. Well, hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being on the call tonight. So to take that question from a Northeastern perspective, I think, fit looks different at every institution, and from a Northeastern lens, in my mind, what makes a great fit for a Northeastern student is a student who is really excited about everything that Northeastern offers. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Northeastern University is a four-year private university with our main campus in Boston, right close to Newton. And then we have our other campuses for undergraduate students in Oakland, California, and London, England. So Northeastern in itself offers a lot of opportunities for students to study not only around the world, but to also get hands-on learning through our co-op program. And I think those are just a couple of the hallmarks of a Northeastern education. So thinking a little bit about the applications, when students show excitement for those types of opportunities, I think that is an indicator to me that they would be a really successful Northeastern student. Not necessarily, literally saying in their essay that they want to do the co-op program, but showing qualities like being a go-getter, being self-motivated, and of course, putting the effort into academics and extracurriculars as well, really makes that well-rounded fit that we are looking for.
Great. And so please forgive me, but I would like you to share some brief information about your institution, and then I can repeat my question. So maybe we can do that. Rachel, how about you?
Absolutely. So brief introduction, Rachel Mason, Associate Director of First Year Recruitment at UMass-Amherst, which is the flagship campus for the Massachusetts University system, located about an hour and a half from you all, depending on traffic, of course. Gets much easier the further away from Boston that you get. We're looking at about 23,000 undergraduate students who come to us as we are ranked the number 26 public university in the United States. Lots of opportunities for research, internships, and co-ops. I like to say that UMass is a great place to not only really delve into the things that interest you, but also discover new things that you didn't know previously. Just an amazing community that uplifts one another. We can separate ourselves and talk about different statistics, whether it be our environmental commitment, openness to LGBT communities and other diverse communities. But the one we like to talk about all the time is that we are at #1 dining in the United States, 6 years running. And it is worth it. Everything. And part of that is in part because we are the #1 agricultural program in the United States as well. So really, we are a gem that is being more and more discovered by students, really realizing the value that the university offers along with a world-class education. Do we want to answer the question now too? We're going to hold off for the intros, right?
I got a little ahead of myself, so I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, we are excited for questions.
That's great. So Elizabeth, why don't we go with you next?
Well, thank you, Kathy, for the introduction, and thank you all for having me here tonight. My name is Elizabeth Bienvenue. I'm an admissions counselor at the University of Vermont. I work with students from Massachusetts and Connecticut. UVM is the state of Vermont's public flagship university. We're about 10,000, actually now it's 11,000 undergraduate students. So we love to call ourselves the medium Goldilocks size, not too big, not too small, really large enough that you have all of the resources and support systems of a public research university, but certainly small enough that there is a really, really strong sense of community on campus. I think that's my favorite part about being at UVM. People are so kind, welcome, open. I think there's just a really, really collaborative spirit in our classes, in our academics, and in the things that students are doing extracurricularly. We have over 100 different majors and minors in 7 different schools and colleges. So there's a lot to explore at UVM. We want to make sure that students have the flexibility to take courses across the university. So, even if they're a nurse, we want them to have the opportunity to take arts courses and vice versa. So we really want to create that really enriched undergraduate experience. And I think we really benefit from being in Burlington, Vermont. So we're probably, I think, about a 3.5 hour drive. It can be 3 hours. It can be a little bit longer depending on traffic through New Hampshire. But it's a pretty easy drive from Massachusetts. And so I think we benefit from being so close to Lake Champlain. We have 10 different biodiverse natural research areas across the state of Vermont that our students and faculty run. We have our own research boat that goes out into Lake Champlain. We have so many internships in the city of Burlington, which is such a fun city to live and learn in. So I feel really lucky to be in such a wonderful city. And I think our students feel that too. I think that's kind of the intro that I've got. So thank you all so much.
Wonderful. And Sue from Wentworth. Thank you.
So appropriate to go last here with a little bit of a different type of institution than our large research institutions. So Wentworth is pretty much in your backyard, similar to Northeastern. We are right down the street in the Fenway area of Boston. We have about 4,000 undergraduates, and our students are studying primarily in STEM and design. So if you think about our most popular majors, they are architecture, engineering, computer science, and construction management actually is very popular. Boston is all about building, and Wentworth is really, there's lots of folks who will tell you that Wentworth helped build the city of Boston with their graduates. So, so really focused in that area. We are a member of the Colleges of the Fenway Consortium. So we are in a consortium with 5 other schools: Emmanuel, Simmons, MCPHS, and Mass Art. So that does provide students with a lot of diversity in terms of intramural sports and other activities and dining opportunities. You can dine either on our campus or on some of the other campuses. So some really nice opportunities in terms of that. Who doesn't love Boston as a city? So certainly, a lot of students come to Wentworth because of the city of Boston. And then I think, similar to Northeastern, probably one of the most popular things that we do is our co-op program. So 100% of our students go on 2 semesters of co-op, and they still graduate in what I call 4 1/3 years, because they go to school 2 summers. And so students graduate typically in August instead of May, when seniors would normally graduate. And those co-ops are paid experiences for students where they're, earning sometimes up to $20,000 in the 2 co-ops. And we get a foot in the door in terms of that full-time work experience afterwards. So I'll stop there and we can keep going.
Sounds great. All right. So let me get back to this question. Claire, and if you feel like you have more that you want to add, that's fine as well. So the question is, with the most recent admission cycle ending, what can you share about your application review, and how did you determine fit with your institution? So why don't we go with Rachel?
Happily. In terms of this application cycle, we continued with the holistic review. So really looking at all aspects of a student, certainly starting with that academic record by looking at transcripts and courses taken, but also, of course, taking into consideration recommendations, extracurricular activities, the essay. My personal favorite is the short answer questions. It gets right to the point, which is always, don't forget it. Don't undersell it. That's an important thing. If we're asking you for it, we want to hear the response. So please do. I think the biggest change for us isn't so much fit per se, in that we receive so many applications from students who would do fantastically on our campus. The biggest change for us this year was that we saw a more than 10% application increase. So 5,000 additional applications over the previous year, which lowered our overall admissions rate. And that ultimately meant that we were saying no or maybe to many students who we know would be fantastic on campus. And so that made it a challenging year for us, because we as admissions professionals really do want to find a reason and want to admit as many students as possible. And being the a public institution within the Commonwealth, I really want to see it available to as many students as we can. Increased popularity has changed that equation, though.
Got it. Sue, do you have any thoughts on your application review this year? And
yeah, I mean, I would add, similar to Rachel, you know, our process is definitely a holistic review process. With Wentworth, one of the things that I find really interesting is, because we are a STEM and design school, we also see a lot of students who have both an artistic and a technical side to them. And so that's really an interesting element of fit for Wentworth. So I have many students who I talk to who say, I want to be an engineer, but I love art, you know, so that's a nice element of fit for us. Very traditional in the STEM fields. You need to like hands-on work. You need to like working in groups and in teams on projects. That is STEM and design, right? You will always be working in those areas if you're choosing these fields, whether it's Wentworth or anywhere else. So it's an important element of fit for us. The one trend that I wanted to bring up as well is, in our review process, we have been very cognizant of what we call the COVID year as we're looking at transcripts. So we will typically kind of close one eye over the COVID year, if you will, as we're looking at the transcript. And I think, you know, I anticipate next year that will be the freshman year for most students. So probably the last year of seeing that big difference. But I feel like it's important for students to know that the colleges are aware that that was a challenging time, and they're taking that into consideration in the process.
boy, is that really great feedback to hear from you folks. Elizabeth or Claire, is there any information you'd like to share?
Yeah, I can certainly go ahead and echo a lot of what Rachel said about our holistic application review process. I think we are really looking at the individual as a whole. We're looking at every single thing that you submit to us. So certainly your transcript, that essay, the optional essay. Again, I just like Rachel, I strongly encourage students to write the optional essay. It's really just a chance for us to get to know you a little bit better. And I think at UVM, we want to make sure that our students are active members of society. You don't have to have your foot in 20 different extracurriculars, but if there's one thing you're really passionate about, let us know. Don't just join all your clubs senior year. Like we can tell when that happens. But you know, I think we just want to make sure that our students are really contributing to the world around them. And we want to see that when they come to UVM, they're successful members of our community, certainly that they're successful academically. So we want to make sure that our students are meeting our admission requirements. And I tell this especially to students who are maybe sophomores and even as our juniors are building their senior year schedule, just checking those course requirements for different programs. So for example, our agricultural programs involve a lot of math and science. And so we really want a robust math and science background. You wouldn't necessarily expect that, but I think, you know, when we're having our first year students hop into Calc 1, we want them to be prepared to succeed at UVM. We want our students to feel like they're on that trajectory to graduate within 4 years and to do really well within our program. So I'd say while you have the summer, just kind of look at those admission requirements on websites. And that's, you know, a really helpful tool in just to making sure that you're prepping that senior year well. For our most recent admission cycle, I think, you know, similar to UMass, we have had a pretty drastic increase in applications. So this year we rounded out at about 30,000 applications. In 2019, that number was about 18,500. So we've really jumped a significant amount in the past couple of years. And so again, I just tell students who are looking to stick out in the application process, be yourself, let us know what you truly care about, write those essays, reach out to us. We're here to help you. I always like to joke in panels, like we're the Office of Admissions, not the Office of Denials. We really want to make sure that higher education is as accessible as possible to our students. So really, we are your resources. Send us an email, go to a virtual visit, go to an in-person visit. We're always happy to help.
Love that. And Claire, did you have anything else you wanted to mention?
I think we've covered it.
Okay, great. Okay, so next question I have is, I know it may be a little bit early because I think admissions offices often like kind of wait for one cycle to be done and then to make new decisions about the new admission season. But if you know, will there be any changes to your admissions process for the class of 2024 or your class of 2028? And if you could comment on your testing plan for next year. And why don't we go with Claire?
Yeah, so for Northeastern, we aren't expecting any significant changes to our application. We continue to list all of our campuses and programs on the Common or the Coalition app. So I think that's one unique piece to a Northeastern application, is we do ask you your level of interest in each of our locations and our programs for first-year students. So that is something I always encourage students to actually take a look at and think about as you're indicating those on the Common app or the Coalition app. And we remain test optional through 2026. And for us, that is truly optional. There is no detractor if you don't submit testing. We are only looking at it if you send it. It's not required for any part of the application or aid processes.
Great, thanks so much. Sue.
Sure. Similarly, no changes anticipated for the next cycle. We are also test optional permanently. So we don't have a cutoff for that. We were test optional before the pandemic and will continue to be. This past year, we also made the letter of recommendation optional for students. So you can still submit a letter of recommendation, but it's not required. So I think that's important to know. We are a Common App school, so you can submit the Common App. The one thing I think that is maybe a little bit different with Wentworth is we do require pre-calculus for our engineering and computer science majors and algebra 2 for everything else. But we do offer a conditional admit to students who don't have pre-calculus for those majors that require it, with an option to do a summer course to make up that pre-calc. So.
And that summer course can be taken at like a community college, or?
We actually offer it at Wentworth for $500. Can be done online, or they can take it at a community college as well. They can do it anywhere.
Great. I think this is a good question to ask everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and have Rachel, if you don't mind answering the question.
No, absolutely. Yeah, so no significant changes to the application itself, but I am very pleased to announce that we are going to be test optional moving forward for the foreseeable future. So no longer going on a pilot year by year. Really excited about that because honestly, again, I'm sure my colleagues may have found the same thing. The tests serve no cumulative value in predicting students' outcomes, i.e., students who didn't give us their test scores did just as well, if not better, than their counterparts. So we're very comfortable moving forward in that fashion.
Wonderful. And Elizabeth.
Yeah, for our process, I don't think we foresee any significant changes. Same with Northeastern, we are still being fully test optional until at least 2026, still truly test optional. You'll still be considered for merit scholarships, honors college, all that good stuff, regardless of whether you submit your scores. And the 3 years that we've been test optional, it's truly been 50-50. Half of our students had submitted scores, half of them hadn't. Half of the students we admitted, half of them had, half of them hadn't. Half of the students who enrolled, half and half. So it's really whatever you feel comfortable doing. And again, no other big significant changes.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank
With
you.
that, I'll turn it over to Dan.
Yeah, I know, we heard several of you talk about the increased number of applications that you've seen, whether it's just year over year in these last couple of years or trends that have continued even pre-pandemic. And, just wondering if you can share with this increased competition and decreased admissions rates at many schools, what advice do you have for students about how, not just how students can sort of communicate whether they're a good fit for your institution, but just generally how students might distinguish themselves? What words of wisdom do you have about how a student presents themselves in their application that might make for a more just compelling application? Why don't we start with Elizabeth this time around?
All right, I think I kind of got ahead of myself answering this in my last response, but I certainly think, again, academically preparing themselves is helpful, but really in the physical application itself. So again, thinking about the essay, thinking about your letters of recommendation, but also again, the optional essay. I think it's so hard to kind of, come up with that topic of the essay, but I think really being true to yourself and showing us who you truly are in that essay is a really great chance for us to get to know you a little bit better, get to know why you might be a good fit for our institution. I'd say just don't overthink it, really just show what you love to do in that essay. I sometimes find that I have students who might write about a really impactful person in their life, but I kind of end up learning about that person more than I end up learning about them. So I'd say really just showing us what you've done, everything that you've done over the past 4 years is helpful for us to know. If you, again, have so many interests. I remember when I was applying to schools, I was really big into musical theater and I was applying to some STEM programs, and I ended up not including all of the work that I had done in my theater program. And I regret that, just because it was something that I was dedicating a lot of time to and something I really cared about. So let us know what you care about. I think just being as upfront as possible will help us know if you're a good fit for our institution. I think that's probably all that I wrote some notes down, but I think that sums it up really well.
Great. And where this is sort of maybe more of a general and less institution specific question, just anyone else who'd like to jump in and maybe share some insight from their perspective? Claire, I think I see you nodding.
Yeah, I think that one of the pieces of advice I always give to students is to give us as admissions counselors as much context as possible. I think that it is so easy to undersell yourself as you're putting together your application. But as I'm reading it, it is really helpful to get a sense of, all that you're doing and how impressive it is. My favorite piece of the application is the activity sheet. So, for example, if your National Honor Society is super selective, put that in the description, or tell me about, how many times you tried out for a sports team. Those pieces that you might not necessarily think to include help me in the context of you as a student. So I think that's what makes students different from each other, even if you're doing the same things. That history and that context is really helpful for me.
Great, thank you. And Rachel or Sue, anything that you'd like to chime in with on this?
I'll jump in just quickly to say my one piece of advice over the years has been, if I took your essay and put it in a pile of other folks' essays, would your mother or father recognize that it's yours? So without names on it, would they know it's you? So someone who knows you well, would they know it's you, right? Because there are some things that happen to everybody in their lives, or many people in their lives, right? So try to write your essay with that lens. And I will say, for us as admissions counselors, it's going to get harder for us because we know that these AI tools are out there and that there are going to be things to help you. So it's got to be really authentic so that we can sense that in the essay, because it is a big part of how we make decisions. The one other piece of advice I will give you is, depending on the institution, demonstrated interest does play a part. So for Wentworth, I will be looking to see if you visited as part of my decision, or if you intend to. It really plays a part in our decision. Not for every institution, it's different, but definitely a piece of our decision.
Mm-hmm. Great. And Rachel, anything that you'd like to add? Or I know we've gotten a lot of great advice here.
No, a lot of great advice. I also want to caution students to know that if you put good effort into your application, then it's going to be a good application. And that if for some reason you are not accepted to an institution, it's not because you did something wrong, that you didn't take the right extracurricular or AP course, or you didn't mention X, Y, and Z. There are a lot of factors in selecting students, and we are offering a student acceptance, that's saying where you're a great fit for the institution. If we're not able to offer you an acceptance, it's not saying you wouldn't have been a great fit. There's just so many different factors out there. That's why it's so important to have a good working list of a manageable number of schools, and to really hold off on falling in love until the spring. When you have your letters, your acceptance letters and your financial aid packages, that's the time to fall in love with us. So know that no matter the outcome, it's not because you didn't do something right. You're doing a great job. It's going to be okay.
Great. Thank you all for some great words of wisdom there. I'm actually going to improvise a little bit here and share one of our audience submitted questions, because I think it's probably very prominent in people's minds. I heard referenced before from Sue to that COVID year. So Newton South has, because we went to a modified grading scale during that year, where instead of using traditional letter grades, we were simply issuing grades that were A, B, pass, or no grade. That also had an impact on our grade point averages. And so for the last few years, we have not been able to provide a cumulative GPA the same way that we had in the past. And the question came in as, can colleges speak about how they recalculate GPA given the unique grading format Newton South used during the class of 2024's 9th grade year, and sort of specifically talk about, does that have an impact on how you look at our student applicants versus other applicants in the pool? Does anyone want to sort of take the first crack at that?
Oh my goodness, this is getting into the weeds of how we do things. And it's going to depend from every institution is going to have a different format, but I want to assure those in the audience that no matter which one we settle on, it is because it is with the goal of being able to evaluate students equally, to look at individual school groups, and to not be comparing, apples to oranges in that regard. So even though our methodology is different, the result is that we seek to, and we do know your students. We know your school. We have your school profile. We're taking all of that into consideration. In regards to UMass and other state institutions, whether it be Massachusetts universities like Dartmouth, Lowell, and Boston, or Salem State, we have to follow the state guidelines. If you're really, really curious, you're more than welcome to go to the Department of Higher Education website, and it'll give you a whole rundown on it. We do recalculate all GPAs, and we will come up with a cumulative one. In terms of the freshman year specifically, we are not going to be calculating pass. We would be calculating the A and Bs, but only if we had a certain number of courses that we were able to calculate. So if you had all passes, then we're not going to be calculating for freshman year. If you had a mixture of it, it's going to depend on the individual situation, but we will ultimately have that cumulative GPA. Ultimately, though, we are looking at that full transcript, and there really is an individual going through and analyzing it and taking it into the context of your school setting, not in terms of an overall applicant pool.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
I would just add that for you all to know, kind of insider baseball here, is really that not all GPAs are created equal. So a 4.0 GPA at one school might be like a 3.3 GPA at another school, right? So all of us read within the context of the school that you are at. And you're not necessarily, your 4.0 is not necessarily getting compared to a 4.0 somewhere else, right? Because we are looking at your school and what it says on your transcript. So I guess if you can get away from being obsessed with that GPA number, if it's a holistic review process, you should do that. We want to know what your grades are, what your rigor was, and the GPA is just a number that helps us figure that out.
Great, thank you. And I don't know, Claire or Elizabeth, if there's anything that you would want to add to that, or if your answers might be substantially similar, we can move on to our next question.
Yeah, I'll just echo that for us, grades, GPA, and rigor of course selection are three different entities of the application, and it's the combination of all of them that informs our choices.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
I'll also just echo that, and I think that we're also thinking, deeply about the grade trends that we see on our students. And I also just want to reassure students out there that by the time that your application goes through the whole cycle, we will have many, many sets of eyes on your application. So really, us admissions counselors are there to contextualize your transcript within your school profile, and all of us are fully aware of the various school profiles that we're dealing with, and we're all trained to have this kind of knowledge of what each school's different scenario is. So know that by the time it's over, there'll be a lot of us who are checking that in the context of your school.
Great, thank you all. Kathy, I'm wondering if we want to jump ahead to the next section of our questions. I think we've kind of actually heard some responses already that cover the next question. Yeah.
Sure, definitely. So the next topic area is going to be about specifically about at the application at your schools and student services that you offer. So one question that we get a lot and that many students are kind of struggle with is if they have to have a major in mind and kind of not declare it, but also just kind of say, say this is a specific interest and major that I'd like to pursue. So I guess my first question is, do you require a major to evaluate for admission? So, Rachel, you want to start with that?
Yes, we actually refer to it as major matters. And this will vary from school to school, and it's so important to ask this question. In terms of UMass-Amherst, you do need to apply to a specific major. You are given the opportunity to also indicate an alternate major. Even if that major is undecided, whether that be specifically kind of broadly undecided or undecided within the specific schools and colleges. So we have 100 majors, but it's broken down by education, school, business, community. This is very, very typical of colleges and universities, and we have undecided within those areas. First, I'd like to address, we do not look down on undecided. You're not penalized for being undecided. I actually think it's the most authentic answer you can give on your application. That being said, for institutions like UMass, where you are applying to a specific major, the admit rate will change dramatically. I like to talk about UMass as a story of two universities. One is our more selective majors. They're selective not because they're better than, they're just really popular. A lot of you really want to go into computer science and business. And so we see a lot of applications there. We've got like 80 other majors to choose from that will have a higher acceptance rate because we have more room for those great students. So it is important. We are transparent though, as much as we can be. If you contact us, we will give you some information. I would like to make one comment about the alternate major. We will consider it, or we may consider it. It will not have the same weight as those who indicated it as their primary major. So for example, if you apply to Eisenberg School of Business and you have psychology as your alternate major, I can't admit you to business. I'll certainly consider psychology, but first I'm going to consider everyone who put psychology as their first choice. So just understand it's not an equal, like, oh, we'll just slip you over here. It's also important to know if there are any majors that are closed majors that you can only apply to and be admitted to directly. At UMass, that would be nursing and Eisenberg School of Business Management, which means that if you're not directly admitted to those programs, you cannot transfer internally. And I really encourage students, apply the major that you're interested in. Don't try and game the system. Trust me, it doesn't work out. Be true to yourself. We're going to do the best we can. You will find a good fit.
thank you. How about you, Sue? As far as, are there any requirements for a student to declare a certain area of interest for admission?
Wentworth admits to major as well, primarily because of the math requirements, right? So we have different requirements for different majors. There is some flexibility within the schools, similar to what Rachel was saying. So if you apply to civil engineering and decide you want to be a mechanical engineer at the end of your first year, that kind of transfer internally is pretty easy. If you came in a major with a lower level math and you want to switch to a major with a higher level math, a little bit more challenging to do something like that. You have to have a general idea definitely at Wentworth. And I would say definitely by a year and a half in at the latest, you probably really need to know what you want to do if you want to graduate in 4 years.
So just as a follow-up to that, are there any majors that you can only enter as a first year student at Wentworth?
No. So you can, if you can make it work with your curriculum and what you've done so far, you can transfer internally between all the majors.
Right. Great. Excellent. Elizabeth or Claire, do you want to take a stab at that question? I don't know if you have any different answers.
Yeah, I think Northeastern takes quite a different approach to majors for our first years. We do not read or really evaluate applications by intended major. So kind of speaking to that well-rounded student, whether you are coming in as an intended engineer or intended social sciences major, we are using our same evaluation standards because we expect that students will move internally within our university. So we are not looking for certain characteristics academically between majors, and we keep our major change options very open for students. I always say it is you against time. That is really the only thing that is going to prevent you from changing your major. It's not going to be something within the university saying you're not allowed to. The one caveat I will give to that is our London campus, which is an independent, it's Northeastern University London. So if you are looking at getting your degree from our British campus, majors do look very different there. It is more strict because it is a 3-year degree. So if you are looking into that, keep that in mind throughout your college search process. Otherwise, it is very open.
Makes sense. Yeah. Elizabeth, anything different?
Well, I think our process is similar to what Rachel and Sue had said. We do have and encourage students to apply undeclared. We do not have a general undeclared major, so we do ask students to apply into one of our 7 different schools and colleges. And you can apply undeclared into all of them except for our Grossman School of Business, just because the only major in our Grossman School is business administration. So you can certainly transfer into business admin at a later point, but we have all of our students have their business degree and then have a strategic theme and concentration. So you can certainly apply into any of our programs except for that undeclared. You certainly can transfer from major to major. I just caution students, and we certainly have so many students change their major. We understand that 17-year-olds don't know what they want to do for the rest of their life. However, I do tell students, certainly let your academic advisor know earlier on as possible, just that you might want to have a major change in mind, just so that they can know, hey, like I might have this student take a specific course outside of their school and college, just so that we can prep you to make sure that you're still on track to graduate on time. Again, the only major that you cannot transfer into at a later point is nursing. That is just so that we make sure that we have clinical placements for all of our students. So you can't transfer internally or externally into nursing, but all the other programs are open to transferring.
So just to be clear, so is nursing the only major that you have to enter as a first year student?
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And Claire, are there any majors at Northeastern that you have to enter as a freshman in order to pursue it?
No, but I would echo that for majors like nursing or any major that is highly structured, by the end of your first year at the latest, getting into the correct major is going to be your best bet.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Dan, I'll let you.
So this is going to be kind of a 2-pronged question, but I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about how disability services work on your campus. So students on an IEP or a 504 who have received accommodations or services in high school, how they would go about advocating for that, what your advice is about disclosing that during the admissions process. And then specifically, if your school has a world language requirement for students, if there are any kinds of exceptions that are made for students with disabilities who maybe have not been able to study a language in high school. Why don't we start with Claire?
Sure. So at Northeastern, our Disability Resource Center coordinates all disability accommodations, housing, academic, and otherwise for students across our network. So whether you're physically in Boston or within the Northeastern network, that is the office that supports you. Most students begin this process at the time of admission or at the time that you are ready to commit to Northeastern. So it is a separate enrollment process through the DRC rather than through the admissions office. So they will ask you to submit your 504 and the existing medical documentation as is relevant, and will work with you to get any accommodations that you need. In terms of a language requirement, our only requirement is that you satisfy what your high school has asked you to do. So if for any reason you don't have a language requirement through your high school, then we will not ask you. We are not going to be looking for it. Again, that kind of context is very helpful. So that is, of course, going to be in your counselor letter, and we will know that as you come to us. So do not worry if you don't have that for any reason, for disability, or if you're an English language learner and you're not taking a language, that's fine as well. I think I've hit both prongs of the question, but if there's anything I forgot, nope. Okay.
Thank you. Rachel, do you want to speak to this next?
Absolutely. Similarly, in the application process, we can waive the foreign language requirement as stated by the state. Just let us know. And I do encourage students to take into consideration when considering disclosing their disability in their application, the context. Right? And we talked about this earlier. Does this provide some sort of context, or is it just this kind of nugget of information that I'm not really sure what to do with? So I really encourage students to take that into consideration. Any college or university that accepts federal funding, which is all of us, are going to have disabilities service offices on campus, and they're going to look similar, though they're not exactly the same. The laws really do change as you graduate from high school and go to college, and literally they change. So you're no longer under IDEA or in terms of 504 even, it differs. In college, it's about access, whereas when you were in high school, it was really about helping you to develop further in your academic skills and understanding that. Also understanding that while those pieces of documentation that you submit are useful and helpful and guiding, they're not legally binding. So it's really important to engage in that conversation in a respectful manner, and understanding that has changed. I will say one thing is that statistically, I know, and I'm just going to imagine a room full of nodding heads out there. The vast majority of students who have an IEP or 504 in high school will not contact disability services. And the students who are successful are the ones that have contacted disability services. And the ones who are really, really successful do so early on. They don't do so in November or December, when it's really about things have gone badly and now there needs to be a cleanup. Disability services are staffed offices, which means that they are open during the summer, right? They're not like faculty that disappear, January 13th and they're gone, or sorry, May 13th and they're gone. I really, really encourage you to find out what you're entitled to and what the offering is there. The reality is we all want you to be successful. We want you to graduate. Give us that opportunity. And if those are pieces that have been in place previously, then certainly access them. Also understand that mental health falls under this umbrella. If you've had any difficulties with depression or anxiety that have impacted your ability to complete work or attendance in the past, let the support office know about that in advance. So if that becomes a challenge later on, which it could or may not, but have that plan in place. So please, 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 this is not about proving that you can do it on your own. You're great. We accepted you. You've done fantastic. Let us continue to support you as you pursue your academic dreams.
Great. Sue, anything from the Wentworth perspective that is different?
No, pretty much everything the same. The one thing I was thinking about as Rachel was saying this is maybe for the parents even more than the students is most places also have what we call a care team, where we as an institution are taking in information about the students if there are any concerns. So what made me think of it is if you disclose something on your application that could present a challenge for you, we actually deliver that information to the care team before you even come to campus. So and then as we go along, if there are additional care reports, then we may reach out to you and say, hey, we've gotten a couple of care reports, anything you want to talk about. But what I wanted to say is parents are also allowed to submit a care report. So if you are, hearing that your student doesn't sound great on the phone or whatever, you can actually submit a care report and the care team will reach out on behalf. So just another layer to make sure we're keeping an eye on everybody, in the climate we live in today, that students are having a happy and healthy experience on campus.
Thank you. And Elizabeth, anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I would first like to start talking about our Student Accessibility Services office at the University of Vermont. We are really, really proud that 25% of our students utilize services within our Student Accessibility Services office. And so we want to make sure that we're letting students know that, SAS is there to help you from your whole application process. They want to see you succeed. They want to be a resource to you. So really, SAS is a there are so many acronyms at UVM. Student Accessibility Services is really under the umbrella of the Center for Academic Success. So that includes tutoring services, note-taking services, any physical accommodations that students may need. And so I think, again, like Rachel said, really being as communicative as possible, letting us know how we can meet you to really meet your needs is certainly something that we really, really encourage our students to do. Again, mental health certainly factors into that process. We have this really fantastic office in our Davis Center, our student center. It's called Living Well, and it's really just a space where students who have a variety of reasons that they come to Living Well can really find a safe space. So we have like massage therapists, we have free yoga, we have just really great spaces where students can kind of study and feel like they have a trusted resource. We have mental health counseling, and those services are available for free to our students at most times of the day. So we really encourage students to not be afraid to seek help, to participate in activities and resources that are available to them. And I'll also just say about, in the response to the question about our foreign language requirements, we do require 2 years of the same foreign language at UVM. Of course, if a student has any documentation, we'll certainly review that as an admissions committee. And again, students are not bound to disclose that information. And like Sue was saying, really any of that information is not used to make or break an admissions decision. It's really just so that we can relay that to the appropriate offices, that when you do come onto campus, you have the support that is available to you.
Great. And just to segue from some of what really all of you have shared into our next question, just if you could talk about, for many students, perhaps they've gone to summer camp or they've had an experience where they've been away from home, but as you think about transitioning students from their high school experience to an on-campus setting, if you can just talk a little bit about what structures are in place on your campus to help first-year students get connected and whether that's mental health supports or just sort of residential life supports, what that looks like and what students can expect. And maybe this time, Elizabeth, you went last time. I'll turn to you first this time.
Perfect. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I think I didn't mention this earlier, but as a public flagship university, we're kind of unique in our student body in that 77% of our students are actually coming from out of state. It's just because Vermont's a small state. We absolutely love our Vermonters. There just aren't that many of them. We're the second smallest. So I think we really have a concentrated effort to make sure that students are feeling welcomed when they come onto campus. We have students coming from Seattle. I had a student from Holland at my information session a few days ago. So we really have folks coming from all over the place. And so we have our orientation at the end of August, just so that we understand that students can't fly back from Seattle, for orientation. So we want to make sure that we're really building robust programming and making sure that students really feel that sense of home away from home as soon as they get onto campus. One of the ways we do that is through our residential learning communities. So all of our students live in what we call a learning community. It's all themed housing based on common interests. So for example, we have the wellness environment for students who care about, who have a really strong passion for physical and mental wellness. We have sustainability, outdoor experience, arts and creativity. So there's 10 different ones that students can choose from. And really the idea is that you're not housed by major, you're not housed by where you're coming from. You're really housed with people who have those same common interests, who want to do the same programming as you. So for example, some of our outdoor experience students might take a trip down to Lake Champlain. Some of our arts and creativity students might tour the art studios on that first weekend on campus. So we really try to make sure that students feel welcomed as possible. We have a really incredible activities fair, and I encourage all students, when you get onto campus and you see that activities fair, go and put your name on as many different activities as you can find. You don't have to commit to being a member of the beekeeping club for all 4 years, but if you have a little bit of an interest, like just let us know. There's no pressure. I think just getting your name out there and seeing what you like to do really helps facilitate that sense of community as soon as you get onto campus. I'll just also add that we have a lot of our students who are really interested in club sports, and we really want to make sure that our students are academically acclimated to campus when they get here. So all of our club sport tryouts are 2 weeks after classes have started. So it really gives them that chance to meet their faculty members, to meet their peers, to get settled into that living situation before they hop into other activities.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And Sue, anything that you'd add there about how Wentworth handles that?
Sure. I think, I mentioned the care team, I think in terms of just keeping an eye on students in the first year, that's one of the things that's very important to us. We do have both an orientation, a 2-day orientation in June, and what we call Wentworth opening week or WOW week, the first week before classes start for students. So really an opportunity just to get to know everybody before everyone else gets there. I think important to know at Wentworth is in terms of a support system in their first year, students have a student success advisor who is an academic advisor. They have a faculty advisor, they have their community assistant, which is a residential assistant for us. And then into their second year, they actually get assigned a co-op advisor as well. So it's really a nice team of advisors that are helping students. So I'll leave it there. So I know we're running short on time.
Thank you. And Claire or Rachel, anything unique to UMass Northeastern that you'd like to share?
I'll just say for Northeastern, advising and orientation is a through line of all of our locations for students. So our incoming first years in this September, whether they are in Boston or around the world, orientation, advising, residential support, all of that is part of the process, no matter where you are.
Great.
Very similarly, we have many programs that are specific to UMass, but they are mirror or similar to what you've heard about today. I would put the emphasis on the fact, and I think this is true of most institutions now, new student orientation is no longer about a single weekend and then you're off and on your own. We refer to as new student orientation and transition. And so that programming and support continues through your first year and beyond. Again, this is because we as institutions don't want to just admit you. We want you to graduate, and we're here to support you, and we're finding ways that we know work. So keep your eyes open, take advantage of the opportunities that are presented.
Thank you.
So we just had one more question, and then I think we have a few submitted questions, correct, Dan?
Yep, there are a couple more that are floating out there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let me just kind of very quickly ask you, each of you, if you could share some words of wisdom with our current juniors, just one little tidbit that you think will help hopefully make the process, a better experience for them. And let's start with Sue.
I'm going to say, and this is, nobody ever believes me when I say it, but there is more than one perfect college for you. So there are 3,000 colleges in the United States. So it's, don't get, I think Rachel said this early on, don't fall in love early on, and have the schools be on your list. Any of the schools on your list be a school that you would be happy to go to.
That's great. Thank you. How about you, Claire?
think my answer will show where we are in the current admissions cycle, but stay organized and keep track of your deadlines throughout the process for all of your universities. So setting yourself up for success and just keeping track of those will really, I think, ease a lot of anxiety.
Great point. And Elizabeth?
I think my biggest piece of advice is just knowing that there are folks who are here to help you along the way. Again, all of us counselors, your counselors are here to help you, your family, your friends, they know you really well, but also you know yourself really well. So certainly trust yourself in that process. If you're ever like on a college visit, put on that backpack, see how you would feel being a student at the school. Ask people who aren't the tour guides that we're putting in front of you. Obviously, we love our tour guides, but talk to people on campus, see what it's like to be a student there, and really trust your gut that you know what's going to be right for you.
Wonderful. And Rachel?
My piece of advice is that you don't have to share your process with anyone. As soon as you start talking about where you're looking, thinking of applying, people are going to have opinions, and the vast majority of them aren't going to have ones that actually matter or are correct. So decide now, and talk to your parents about this as well, because your relatives are probably the biggest offenders in terms of asking, where are you applying? Decide now that you said, you know what? We're putting a lot of work into it, and look forward to announcing on May 1st of 2024 where I am committed to, because frankly, it's nobody else's business.
That's wonderful. Yes. Yeah. What a great group you are. I love all the advice and feedback. Just so helpful.
Thank you all for that. We do have, as I mentioned, just a couple of questions that are still dangling out there. A couple of them are very concrete, specific. So I'm going to start with, and this one is specific to Claire and Sue, but there's a question from one of our attendees, just that with the co-op programs at your institutions, do first-year students ever participate in co-ops, or is that something that happens further down the road?
Sure, I can start for Northeastern. We always emphasize, and this is so true, that no two students have the exact same path, but university-wide, our policy is that the earliest a student can participate in a co-op is January of their sophomore year. So it's not something that will start in freshman year. Even the preparation process can only happen in sophomore year. And if I can just jump ahead quickly, because I know that there was a question about graduation rates, which is really directly impacted by co-op. We are seeing the vast majority of our students are graduating in 4 years, even with co-ops. And I think Sue mentioned, using summers, there are different ways that we make sure everything fits in. But for us, the 4-year 2 co-op model is the most popular.
Great, thank you. And Sue?
So similarly, the majority of our students will do the first optional co-op after their sophomore year. So in the summer after their sophomore year. The required co-ops are very specific for us in the spring of your junior year and in the fall of your senior year. I like that for our students because they're all gone at the same time. So you're gone with your whole class at the same time. The reason probably for both of us that we keep our co-ops in the more senior years is we want the students to have some really good academic experience under their belt so that they can have a true co-op where they're really working in their field and experiencing their major.
Great, thank you. And Sue, just while you're speaking, do you want to speak to that 4-year, 5-year graduation rate?
Sure. Just like us, so we literally it's 4 1/3 years for the majority of students. So because we use the summer semester, so we have a trimester system, and both juniors and seniors use the summer semester to finish up their courses. So 4 1/3, and then just if I could give advice. Sometimes the question might be better around retention rate versus graduation rate, because the way graduation rate is measured, if a student takes a semester off for a health reason or other reasons, they're no longer in the 4-year graduation rate. But so I always say, ask about retention rate as well as graduation rate.
Great, thank you. And just while we're on graduation rate, I don't know if that's something that Rachel, Elizabeth, that you can sort of chime in and share figures offhand.
In terms of the four-year graduation rate, we have an 80% graduation rate. Between freshman and sophomore year, we have a 91% retention rate. I don't know the 5-year graduation rate off the top of my hand, but the majority of students who did not graduate in those 4 years are doing so within 5, even when they change their majors or double majors or do all the fantastic things are. And I apologize, my room keeps getting darker and darker. I feel like I'm being swallowed by the shadow.
Great, thank you. And Elizabeth.
Yeah, our freshman to sophomore retention rate is about 88%, and then the 4-year is around 70, and then the 5-year is about 75%.
Great, great. And I do see there was one more question that just came in. If anyone is considering a gap semester, many students may apply and then ask for permission to defer enrollment by a year. But if a student is applying for the spring semester rather than the fall semester, does that have a differential impact on, admissions rates or, any sort of thoughts or words on that?
I actually unmuted myself because this has been a change in our policy in the last couple of years. UMass-Amherst does not offer deferrals under pretty much any circumstances, including religious, military, or planned health absences. You need to apply to the semester in which you intend to enroll. If you apply for the spring semester, there's a different deadline. And yes, there are different acceptance rates. It's also important to keep in mind if you accumulate any credits post high school graduation, that'll impact your ability to apply as a first-year student versus a transfer student. So again, deferrals at UMass-Amherst are simply not possible.
Thank you.
And for Northeastern, we're the exact inverse. Deferrals post-admission are totally fine, but they are 1 year. So there's not any situation where a student can enter the university in January. It has to be in September.
It's exactly the same for Wentworth.
Same for us. I again would caution students who are looking to take that gap semester, if they are taking credits in that semester, that may change them to be a transfer student. And so some of our majors are not open for spring admission. So I would say students who want to defer will, and do intend to enroll after that fall semester, I might encourage them just to apply to the fall as a first-year student, request the deferral. We're typically able to grant deferrals as long as students are not taking more than 6 credits per semester. Let us know what they're going to do in that semester, and just let us know they plan to intend to defer for a certain amount of semesters. Great.
Well, thank you all so much. I think that actually covers all of the questions that were submitted. We really appreciate all of you taking the time this evening as well for our attendees. But you've been so helpful and offered just great advice. We thank you so much. Students and families that may be viewing this, if there are questions that you have that are specific to any one of the universities that we're presenting here tonight, you can reach out to Ms. Sabet or I, and we can share contact information for you to reach out directly to these schools. But I wish everyone a great evening and thank you for your attendance.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.